We are in Matthew chapter 5. Surprise! Still in Matthew chapter 5. We'll be there for a few more weeks. As we continue our study through the Sermon on the Mount, we come today to verse 33, where Jesus talks about pursuing integrity and honesty. But before we get into the text, let me tell you about a lady who acquired a lot of wealth, and she decided that she wanted to hire a famous author to research her genealogy and write a book about it. He agreed to do it under the condition that whatever he found would be put in the book, and she agreed. Well, he discovered that one of her grandfathers had been a criminal and had been electrocuted in the electric chair at Sing Sing prison. And when he came to her and said, "This is your grandfather's story, it has to be in the book, that's the agreement we made," she said, "Could you please find a way to not make it so obvious?" And here's what he wrote. One of her grandfathers occupied the chair of applied electricity in one of America's best-known institutions. He was very much attached to his position and literally died in the harness. I guess there are ways of saying things without really saying things, right? That's about what the scribes and Pharisees were doing in Jesus' day. Now, let me remind you that the way we approach the scriptures and the way we study the Bible is you've got to answer two main questions. And the first is, when the person who is speaking it, in this case Jesus, or the person who is writing it, how did they understand what they were saying or writing? And then secondly, how would the original audience have understood what they were talking about? In other words, you go back to the first century in Jesus' case. What was he talking about? When he's teaching his disciples, how would they have understood it? Then you gain the principle for that. Then you make the application to our day today. And that's important because these last several verses of Matthew 5 have really been subjected to a lot of misinterpretation in the church world. And so hopefully in the coming weeks, we can help kind of get a handle on this is what Jesus was teaching and how it applies to our lives. So today we pursue honesty and integrity. Matthew 5, starting in verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said. Now remember, when he's saying that, he's talking about the oral traditions, not necessarily the Old Testament scriptures, but what the scribes and Pharisees added to them. You've heard that it was said to the people long ago, "Do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it's God's throne, or by the earth, for it's his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it's the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black." That was before hair coloring, obviously. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. What's he saying? Let's look at the historical context of this. There are several verses in the Old Testament, and here's just two or three of them, that talk about being honest. Leviticus 19:12, "Do not swear falsely by my name, and so profane the name of the Lord your God. I'm the Lord." Numbers chapter 30, verse 2, "When a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word, must do what he said." And of course, you're familiar with Exodus 20, verse 7, "You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain," or not misuse the name of the Lord your God. And this commandment, usually you hear this commandment preached about you're not supposed to cuss. Well, that's not what he's talking about here. He's talking about taking an oath and using God's name when you have no intention of keeping your word. And so in this section, what is Jesus trying to tell us? What is he saying? Now, in his day, the scribes and the Pharisees were breaking that principle of being honest in two ways. Sometimes they would take an oath when one wasn't necessary or when one was not appropriate. They were just taking oaths for all kinds of things. Bible commentary, William Barclay calls it frivolous swearing. It wasn't necessary. They would start a sentence by like, by thy life, or by my head, or may I never see the comfort of Israel if, whatever. Now, you gather that principle, and immediately you're already, saying what we say in our society today. It's like, if I'm lying, I'm dying, or hand to God, or on my mother's life, or on a stack of Bibles. Not necessary. But the scribes and Pharisees were really good at just throwing out things all the time. By my life, it's cold today, or whatever. And Jesus said, no, that's ridiculous. It's frivolous. Don't do that. The other issue, which was a little more serious, was what Barclay calls evasive swearing. And again, when we talk about swearing, we're talking about, I swear to tell the truth. Okay? I'm not talking about profanity. I'm talking about taking an oath, saying I'm telling the truth. I swear to tell the truth. The scribes and Pharisees had two divisions of oaths or swearing. Any oath where they specifically said the name of God was binding, and they had to be telling the truth. But if they did not specifically use the name of God, they could break it. And so you had to pay real close attention when these people are making these oaths and doing this swearing to you about something that's going to happen, because if they did not specifically use the name of God, you knew they were going to break it. And Jesus is saying, no, just tell the truth. And here's their reasoning. They felt that once they invoked the name of God, that he was involved in that transaction, and so they had to be honest about it. But if they did not invoke the name of God, then he wasn't involved. And they could break it if they wanted to. So they would develop this series of oaths, and that explains verse 35. Because what they would do is they would say, I swear by the earth, or I swear by Jerusalem, or I swear by heaven, or I swear by my head. And they would make all kinds of elaborate, sacred sounding, religious sounding prefaces to their oath. But if they didn't specifically name the name of God, you knew they were going to break it. So Jesus is saying, you don't need to go through all of that. Just yes or no. Just tell the truth. So the heart of the matter is this. Remember, we've said all through this Matthew 5 section, Jesus is after our hearts. Our righteousness must exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. And again, remember that the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees was all about externals, and they neglected the internal. They neglected the heart. So there's three main things that Jesus is teaching us here. The first is that God is involved in everything. So again, go back to their thought process. Their thought process was, if I don't name the name of God, he's not involved. So I can name the earth, or I can name Jerusalem, or I can name heaven, or I can name anything else I want to, but as long as I don't name God's name, he's not involved. Jesus said, no, you can't do that, because heaven is God's throne, and the earth is his footstool, and Jerusalem is his city. And he said, no, everything, God is involved in everything. You can't keep God out of any transaction. Whether you name God's name or not, he is involved in everything. And that's really one of the main points I want to press on us today. God is involved in everything. There is no such thing as the sacred part of your life and the secular part of your life. God is just as interested and just as involved in you on your job or in the classroom on Monday as he is you sitting here on Sunday. He is interested in every single part of your life. He's involved in all of it. There's no such thing as God doesn't care about how I do this. God only cares about am I reading the Bible and praying and going to church. No. God is involved in everything. 1 Corinthians 10:31. Whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all to the glory of God. So I'm going to repeat myself again. Your life is not divided into the parts God cares about and the parts he doesn't care about. God cares about every part of your marriage. He cares about how you do your job. He cares about how you do business. He cares about every single aspect of your life. There's not a part of your life that he doesn't care about. That means there's not a part of a life that you don't need to pray about. There's not a part of your life that you don't need to take to God and say, God, this seems kind of weird. It doesn't seem very spiritual, but I'm having an issue with this, and can you please help me? And he'll say, yes, because I'm interested in everything. I'm involved in everything. Please understand that. Every single part of our life is to be lived as an act of worship and service to God. God doesn't care about my business ethics. Yeah, he does. God doesn't care about my marriage. Yeah, he does. God doesn't care about the problems I'm having with my parents or my kids. Yeah, he does. God doesn't, yes, he does. He cares about every single part of our lives. That ought to encourage you. I personally believe God cares which car I buy. God cares which house I buy. God has a plan. And that everything I do, I need to take to God. I say, God, now I'm not talking about, Lord, should I wear my blue pants or my black pants? You know, he gave us a brain. But you might want to say, Lord, should I wear this out in public or not? You know, but some people ought to pray some of that. But, it's God, I have this decision to make about whether or not to take this promotion. I need you to lead me because I know you have a plan for my life. God, I need to know, whether this is the right purchase or whether this is the right purchase. I've told you before the story, but I'm going to tell it again because, I need to hear it again. Maybe you need to hear it again. When we were in the market to buy a house, and we thought we had found, it took us over a year, and we thought we had found the right one. It was just seemed perfect. We made the offer, get a call from our realtor, they turned it down. Okay, so we upped our offer a little bit and sent it back in, and he came back, he said, they turned it down. There's some kind of a technicality that something didn't get dated right or something, and they turned it down. All right, let's try one more time. All the time we're praying, God, if this, God, things we don't know. And if this is not the house for us, things we don't know. But we're going to give it one more shot. And we gave it one more shot. And the realtor comes back, he says, I have never in my life had a contract turned down over what they turned this one down for. And I was like, okay, Lord, 3 strikes. This must not be the house for us. About 3 months later, Augusta had a very heavy rain. And there was a picture on the front page of the Chronicle of a flooded house. The creek behind the house had overflowed, and that house had water about 18 inches up into the house, all the way through the house. The house we wanted to buy. And it's like, oh, God said, recognize that house, Wilson? I was protecting you from something you didn't even know I was protecting you from. Now, it doesn't always work that way, but I use that as an illustration to say God knows what we don't know. And we ended up in a house that has been for over 30 years perfect for us. And all the different permutations of our families and things, it has been perfect for us. Not so perfect now because it has too many stairs and Donna can't do them, but we're working on that. But God's involved in everything. He cares about every single decision you make. And you can probably look back over your life on some decisions that you thought, oh yeah, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to do this. And about 6 months later, you thought, man, was that a mistake? I wish I'd have prayed about that one. Pray about everything. God is involved in everything. Whether you use his name or not, whether people think it's religious or not, God is involved in every aspect of your life. That should encourage you. Because again, he knows things you don't know. But the second thing Jesus is saying here is just be honest. All you need to say is simply yes or no. God's standard of truth is that you tell the truth all the time. That you just tell the truth. That you don't have to say on a stack of Bibles. You don't have to say hand to God. You don't have to do any of that swearing or any of those oaths. Just tell the truth. What he's saying is your character should be such that people who know you, remember the old timers that used to say his word is his bond? You should live a life of such honesty and integrity that people know they can trust you. That they don't have to get you to sign something. They don't have to get you to swear to something. If you give them your word, you're a person of honesty and integrity, so they know an oath is not necessary. But I saw you perk up when I said, don't sign anything, don't say. Because in verse 37, when he says, everything beyond this comes from the evil one, he's not saying that if you sign a contract, that's evil, or if you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, that's evil. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, you should live your life with such character that people know you're honest. However, not everybody is honest. And we live in an evil world, largely controlled by the evil one. And because we are living in a world dominated by the evil one, sometimes you need to be put under oath. Now, we also know that you can put some people under any oath you want to, and they're still going to lie to you. But what Jesus is saying here is not that it's wrong to swear to tell the truth. He's not saying it's wrong to sign a contract. He's saying live your life in such a way that people know your character. They know you're honest. They know you're not a shyster. They know you're not trying to, find a loophole somewhere. You're being honest and you're being a person of integrity. However, because we live in a world that is marked by duplicity and deceit and dishonesty, there will be times when it will be appropriate for you to sign a contract or to swear in a courtroom. And by the way, when he's, some people take this verse to mean you should never say, I swear to tell the truth. And so, historically, our courts had been in the past, tolerant of Christian faith. And so they would say, do you swear or affirm? That's really not what Jesus is talking about here. That's fine if you'd rather affirm than swear. But what he's saying is, tell the truth. You don't have to make an oath to be honest if you're a follower of Jesus. But again, because there are times in this wicked world when, as much for your protection as somebody else's maybe, you need to sign a contract. Because not everybody's going to be as honest as you are, and for your own protection, you might need to sign something. Because through the scripture, Paul would say, I call God as my witness that I'm speaking the truth here. The high priest said to Jesus, I charge you under oath by the living God, are you the Christ? And Jesus said, yes, I am. So what Jesus is saying in our passage today is just tell the truth. It's what James says in James chapter 5, verse 12. Above all, my brothers and sisters, don't swear, not by heaven or earth or anything else. All you need to say is a simple yes or no. So maybe check yourself. How are you like that? Are you one of those find a loophole people? Are you one of those that you say very specifically what you mean, leaving you a whole lot of wiggle room? Or are you a person of honesty and integrity? Just tell the truth. God's interested in all of it. Yes, again, sometimes you'll have to sign something. Sometimes you want to sign something because the person you're dealing with, is not going to tell you the truth. But you, for your part, have such a reputation for honesty and integrity that they know they can trust you because you're a follower of Christ. It goes back to what we've said repeatedly through this series. It's all about your heart. Have a heart of honesty. Have a heart of integrity. Have a heart of purity. The psalmist said in Psalm 51:6, you desire truth in the inner parts. As I was working on it, I said, this is one of those things where part of me said, well, I need to go on and do verses 39 and 38 and 39 too in this lesson. But verses 38 and 39 need more time, because we're going to get into eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, and what in the world does that mean in our society today? Lord willing, that's next Sunday. But this morning, the focus is honesty, integrity. Just be a person of your word. And maybe overarching it all, the lesson should be, remember that God's involved in everything. He's involved in your business dealings. He's involved in your relationships. He's involved in your family. He's involved, yes, in your church. He's involved in every single part of your life. And I wish we could really get hold of that. That God cares just as much about what happens to your life tomorrow as he is that you're in church today. He cares about every single part of us. There's not a single part of our life that he's not interested in you. There's a song that says, if it matters to you, it matters to him. And that's good news. God cares about it all. So pray about it all. Remember what the scripture says. Pray about everything. And that word means pray about everything. Pray about your health issues. Pray about your finances. Pray about the decisions you're making. Pray about your school grades. Pray about every single thing. Pray about that interview. Pray about which job. Pray about which vehicle. Pray about every single thing, because God is interested in every single thing. I'm so thankful for that. I preached a similar truth many years ago, and a guy came up to me after church and said, I don't believe that. He said, I don't believe God cares if I take this job or that job. And I said, that's fine. You don't have to believe that. But I would hate to live my life thinking that God didn't care about which job God cares about, in our case, God cares about where we go to school. I had a decision to make, senior in high school. Where am I going to go to college? That would be determined on what career I would follow. And I had to find God's will for what career I would follow, so I know which school to go to be trained to do whatever it is I was going to do. And it was at that school that Donna and I met. Think about how sad the world would be if Donna and I had not met. I mean, God cares about those things. Those things are important to the rest of your life. So pray about everything. God's involved in it all. Let him be involved in it all. Count on him for his direction in every aspect of your life. People will come up to me and say, Pastor Ken, I don't know if I'm supposed to do this or this. And I'll say, have you prayed about it? And I've had them look at me like, pray about it? Oh yeah, maybe I should. Yeah, maybe you should. Pray about it all. God's interested in everything. He's involved in it all. Give it all to him. Take it all to him in prayer. And be a person of honesty and integrity. And just tell the truth. So that you've got a reputation as an honest person. Father, there's so much deceit and duplicity in our world today that this seems almost like a foreign concept. But Father, your people need to be honest. And the sad thing is, so many times people who call themselves Christians are some of the most manipulative people out there. Father, help us to be people of our word. Help us to be people of honesty and integrity. And Lord, help us to remember that you're interested in every single aspect of our lives. May that encourage us, that we don't have to try to make that decision on our own. You can guide us. You can direct us. That still small voice that you promise us that says, this is the way, walk in it. So Father, may we be tuned into your voice in every area of our lives so that we can live all that we do to the glory of God. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine on you and give you his peace now and evermore. Amen. God bless you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here today. You're dismissed.